Think back to the last time you broke a long fast with a full meal, rice, bread, something substantial. Track what happened in the 2 hours that followed, not immediately after eating, 2 hours after. If you felt a heaviness behind the eyes, a narrowing of focus, a tiredness that arrived uninvited and brought an unexpected hunger with it, that was not the food settling. That was a hormonal sequence, your pancreas triggered, your adrenal glands amplified, and your brain registered as a signal to find more fuel. You completed 23 hours of disciplined fasting. Your body spent the next 2 hours quietly undoing part of the work. The mechanism that caused it is the one nobody explains, because most people blame the fast, when the problem is entirely in the landing. In the last video, we established that a carbohydrate-first meal ends the fasted metabolic state in a single move. mTORC1 reactivates, gluconeogenesis shuts down, beta-hydroxybutyrate clears from the bloodstream within 60 minutes. What we did not cover is what that move triggers next. Because the transition does not stop there. It keeps going, and in the hours that follow, the consequences accumulate in a sequence most OMAD practitioners recognize, but almost none can name. Quick question before we get into it: have you ever felt a strong wave of hunger within 2 hours of finishing your OMAD meal? Yes or no in the comments below. Here is the simple version. When a large carbohydrate load arrives after an extended fast, the blood glucose signal is unusually large, not because you ate more than normal, but because the system receiving it has been running on a completely different program for 23 hours. The pancreas reads the signal and responds proportionally. In some people, it overshoots. Glucose gets cleared from the bloodstream faster than the brain can comfortably manage. The body treats the drop as an emergency. The emergency response is the crash. Now here is what is actually happening, step by step, because the sequence is the whole story. After 23 hours of fasting, your pancreatic beta cells have been operating in a low-output state. Insulin secretion has been suppressed. The beta cell memory, the priming effect that makes the second phase insulin response stronger when the pancreas has recently been active, has been sitting idle. Research published in the journal Diabetes Care found that extended fasting leads to a delayed insulin peak and reduced overall insulin secretion compared to an overnight fast, alongside significantly higher postprandial glucose excursions. Which is to say, after a long fast, your pancreas is slower to respond and your blood glucose climbs higher as a result. That elevated glucose peak sends a stronger signal. A stronger signal drives a harder insulin correction, and the correction, when it arrives, has further to travel. Think of it the way a thermostat works in a room that has been cold for a long time. The heating system fires harder to close the gap. In a well-maintained room, it reaches temperature and modulates. In a room that has been near freezing all day, it overshoots, runs past the target before it registers that the gap is already closed. Your pancreas is doing exactly this. It is not broken. It is a thermostat that spent 23 hours in a cold room and is now trying to manage a sudden surge of heat. The word for what happens next is overcorrection. The word most people use is nap. In the 2 to 4 hours after that first large carbohydrate meal, blood glucose begins to fall. In some people, research using continuous glucose monitors on healthy adults suggests roughly a third it falls below baseline. The pancreas has cleared glucose faster than the body can replenish it from the meal. What arrives next is the counter-regulatory response. The adrenal glands release epinephrine, adrenaline, and the hypothalamic pituitary axis triggers a cortisol pulse. These are not subtle signals. Epinephrine is the same hormone released during a stress response. Its job here is to instruct the liver to resume glucose output to restart the gluconeogenesis that insulin just suppressed and to mobilize glycogen stores. Cortisol follows, amplifying the effect and suppressing insulin sensitivity in peripheral tissues to keep glucose circulating for the brain. The brain fog, the sudden fatigue, the irritability that arrives without warning 2 hours after eating that is not tiredness. That is an adrenal event. Your body has declared a low-grade metabolic emergency in response to a meal you intended as nourishment. It handled the emergency competently, as it always does. It simply should not have needed to. And then the hunger arrives. Neuropeptide Y and AGRP, the hunger-promoting neurons in the arcuate nucleus of the hypothalamus that were suppressed by the satiety signals of your meal begin firing again as glucose falls. Ghrelin, which had been suppressed by eating, starts climbing back. The hunger you feel 2 hours after an OMAD meal is not psychological weakness or an undisciplined appetite. It is your hypothalamus responding to a genuine glucose signal. The meal happened. The signal did not hold. Here is the part worth sitting with. Your body spent 23 hours managing fuel supply with extraordinary precision, tracking blood glucose to within fractions of a millimole per liter, switching fuel sources without instruction, running cellular maintenance on a schedule your conscious mind had no part in. And then, in response to a carbohydrate load that arrived too fast into a system that had been standing down, it triggered a full adrenal stress response within 2 hours of eating. It managed everything for 23 hours without complaint. It needed rescuing from the meal. The honest gap here deserves to be named carefully. The crash mechanism is real, and the counter-regulatory sequence is well established. What the research has not confirmed in large human trials is the precise prevalence of significant glucose undershoot, specifically after a 23-hour fast, as opposed to shorter overnight fasts, or the 72-hour protocols most of the prolonged fasting literature uses. The mechanistic logic is sound. The individual variation is substantial. Some OMAD practitioners will recognize every symptom described here. Others will experience a milder version. A minority may not experience it at all, depending on their baseline insulin sensitivity, the composition of their meal, and factors the current evidence cannot yet precisely stratify. Nobody selling you a fasting protocol mentions that last part. The variation is real, and it matters. What the mechanism responds to is a slower signal. A meal that arrives in stages rather than all at once gives the pancreatic response time to calibrate the glucose peak is lower, the insulin correction is more measured, and the counter-regulatory cascade either does not fire at all or fires at a fraction of the intensity. Fat first, then protein, then carbohydrate. The sequencing from the last video addresses the glucose peak at the front end. But there is a second lever, and it operates through the middle of the meal rather than the front. Soluble fibre, the kind found in legumes, oats, and most vegetables, forms a viscous gel in the small intestine that physically slows the rate at which glucose enters the bloodstream. Not by a small amount. A 2022 meta-analysis in the journal Nutrients found that soluble fibre supplementation reduced postprandial glucose peaks by an average of 17% across studies in healthy adults. The mechanism is purely physical. The gel reduces the surface area through which glucose can be absorbed per unit time. Less glucose arriving per minute means a smaller peak. A smaller peak means a proportionally smaller insulin response. A proportionally smaller insulin response means a shallower correction. The crash is not blocked, it is dampened at its source. What this actually feels like is the difference between opening a pressurized valve all at once versus cracking it slowly. The pressure behind the valve is identical. What changes is the rate of release, and that rate is the entire difference between a system that manages the transition and one that declares an emergency. Over time, consistently managing both ends of this transition sequencing at the start of the meal, fiber load through the middle trains the glucose homeostasis system to operate within a narrower band. The data on long-term glucose variability reduction through dietary fiber is among the most consistent in nutritional research. The magnitude of the effect varies by individual, by fiber type, and by the overall composition of the meal. But the direction of the effect does not vary. Your body has been running this counter-regulatory program since long before agriculture existed. The glucose spike, the adrenal recovery signal, the urgent hunger that follows that entire sequence kept your ancestors functional when food arrived unpredictably and scarcity was the default condition. A large meal after a long fast, followed by a hormonal push to find more food while the body restocked its fuel supply, that was not a flaw. It was the design. It worked for 200,000 years of human history without a single complaint. It was just never tested against a person who chose the fast deliberately, eats one carefully selected meal, and then has to sit in a meeting for the next 3 hours wondering why they cannot remember what was said in the first one. The crash is ancient. The context is entirely new, and the mechanism, now that you have it, tells you exactly where to intervene. If this kind of explanation is useful to you, subscribing and liking the video helps more people find it.